Right off of Commerce Street, this neighborhood is starting to see more and more locally owned businesses. We're going to talk about that. And in every Know My Neighborhood episode, we like to talk about what we call the good, the bad, the frustrating, and so many things that really unite all of our neighborhoods, no matter where you live. Steve Spreester is going to kick us off tonight, talking with some longtime Denver Heights neighbors who know it best.
We always refer to Denver Heights as Denver Heights, Texas.
You were born and raised in Denver Heights.
Denver Heights, Texas. Many professionals, educators, doctors, lawyers, every element of society lived in Denver Heights. It was like a city unto itself.
And a lot of people flinch on it and say, well, it's not safe over there. I feel very comfortable and safe down there. I was born and raised here. We have one of the most beautiful skylines when you go up to the YMCA and look downtown. It's beautiful.
I was born and raised about 2-3 blocks from here.
Yeah.
And where we are right now used to be the variety store.
We had a lot of houses that were falling. This place was a bad area at one time. It was you had prostitution hanging out up and down the street. You had a lot of drugs in the neighborhood. I've been waiting for this day a long time. This place is personal because I've been here all my life. And my grandmother and my grandfather, they started, and my mom and dad were here, and my aunts and uncles. And we were just one big family here.
It's great if we could find a happy medium where we can keep the diversity of the neighborhood and still maintain the history of the neighborhood.
The biggest misconception of Denver Heights is that it's a dangerous place. Nothing could be further from the truth. And so we are like a phoenix right now, rising from the ashes with new housing stock and people dying to get back over here.
If there's one thing that you hope people take out of this story, this Know My Neighborhood story, what do you want it to be?
I want it to be to change your perception of what Denver Heights and the East Side in your mind has been, and look at the positive. Because it's a beautiful place. It's a beautiful place. You got beautiful people here.
Denver Heights, Texas.
Denver Heights, Texas. Yes, sir.
We heard that from so many neighbors. Denver Heights, Texas. Some of those neighbors are right here off the sides of our camera here at Mark's Outing with us tonight. That story was shot at Tony G's, which is another iconic restaurant in this neighborhood. And some of the changes you heard neighbors talk about, we're going to dive into here this evening. Some of it's been demographic changes, but 100 years ago, Denver Heights was known as a neighborhood of black professionals, black economic activity. There was so much happening in this neighborhood. Doctors, lawyers, teachers, all living here together, including Pullman porters. So what is a Pullman porter? Well, I found out from some Denver Heights natives. Frank Dunn is proud of where he comes from.
When I go all over the country and I meet people and they always ask me where I'm from, I tell them it's Denver Heights, Texas.
You don't say San Antonio.
No.
Why? Why is that?
Because Denver Heights was very significant with the people I grew up with. I don't know if I need to put anything in front of that.
It's a pride Mario Salas shares, the longtime local civil rights activist and professor.
I could sit here and pick your brain all afternoon.
Well, I could sit here all night.
Yeah. Spent much of his life in Denver Heights.
Denver Heights was, I think, a hub of it was a big hub of black activity. Starting way back in the 1920s and 30s, there were a lot of black businesses there. At one time when the trains were segregated, blacks were able to work on the railway system as porters, and they were called Pullman porters because the train was a Pullman train, and they were porters on the train.
I watched how neat they dressed with their uniforms on. I thought that was the greatest thing ever.
What did they look like?
They had the uniforms, the Pullman porter, with their hat, and I love that. That hat meant a lot to me.
When they would get off the train at Sunset Station, or St. Paul Square, has two names, they would need a place to stay, so they would board in boarding houses in the Denver Heights.
Growing up in a neighborhood of black professionals, Dunn says, gave kids like him something to dream of.
We had it going on. We had it going on.
Dunn also remembers the legacy of influential Denver Heights neighbors like Charles Bellinger. His profession wasn't as straightforward.
I mean, he was a gambler.
And a successful one. Bellinger used his money and influence at City Hall to fight for the East Side. He also covered the cost of poll taxes, a fee to vote, so that his neighbors could afford that right.
He was a community guy. He took care of a lot of people. A lot of people got jobs because of Mr. Bellinger, and he was a good businessman, but Mr. Bellinger had black folks.
Denver Heights became a predominantly black neighborhood in large part because African Americans weren't allowed to live elsewhere.
There was deed restrictions on some properties. The former mayor of San Antonio had a deed restriction on Antero Hills and Alamo Heights. And I memorized it by heart. And it says, no lot, tract, or re-subdivision of land shall ever be sold, leased, or given as a gift to any person of African or Mexican American descent.
Then later, a highway made this community smaller.
When they put 281 in, where the Alamo Dome is, that took a chop off of what was all black at one time.
Dunn wants people to know about the history that Denver Heights holds, not only what it once was, but what it's becoming as a prime piece of real estate just east of downtown. It's a story he is determined to tell in a documentary he's making.
If we don't tell our story, who's going to tell it?
And Frank Dunn, who is here tonight with his hat just off to the side of this camera, he told me that Bexar County is working to help fund that documentary he's working on. Doesn't have a name yet, but it's expected to come out sometime this year. So we'll keep you posted on that. We want to get a check now of the forecast for all of South Texas. Let's send it back over to Shelby Ebertowski. She's joining us in the studio back at the station. And Shelby, finally, we can put the rain jackets away.
Yes, finally you can put the rain jackets away. We're seeing some cloud coverage also decrease, as well as the winds. It was a little bit of a breezy day today. There is a high wind watch in effect for areas in West Texas, and this does include wind gusts up to about 31 miles an hour in areas near Rock Springs, 31 in Del Rio. Now for us in San Antonio, a little calmer, just seeing winds that are about 12 miles an hour, but our temperatures feeling very warm as that sunshine that arrived today allowed our temperatures to get to the warmer side. 66 in San Antonio, 72 in Cotulla this afternoon, and throughout the next few hours we're going to continue to see our temperatures decrease into those 50s, but we're not expecting our temperatures to dip down where we're seeing a hard freeze. Temperatures are going to dip into those 40s, but I have some good news. If you like the warm, our temperatures not only this weekend are going to increase into those 70s, but we have a few more chances of 80 degrees next week, with our temperature outlook looking above average and even well below above average for areas of South Central Texas, and even getting into areas near Georgia, South Carolina, and Florida. And that's going to really arrive next week into next weekend for our warmer temperatures. But with that, we also have a few more chances of some rain showers arriving next week, and I'll have the forecast on how warm we'll get and what you can expect for those rain chances coming up in just a bit.
All right, Shelby, we will see you soon. Thank you. Let's get a check of traffic really quick. Highway 90 at 1604. It's slow going, the typical slowdown this time of day. No major tie-ups to tell you about right now. But we still have lots more to share about Denver Heights. You know, if you drive through this neighborhood, especially down South New Braunfels Avenue, you're going to notice block after block of some really large cemeteries. We wanted to know why that is. How did they end up here? Well, neighbors told us that, you know, everything was concentrated downtown one time. This used to be the outskirts of the city. So that's how so many cemeteries wound up in the Denver Heights neighborhood. And then years later, several black-owned and family-owned funeral businesses were created on the east side. So while we highlight interesting things about a neighborhood, Know My Neighborhood is also about shining a light on what is frustrating neighbors. And that's happening on Iowa Street in Denver Heights. It's a main thoroughfare in this neighborhood, and it's one that neighbors tell us they've been raising concerns about for years, but they've gone unnoticed. Our Daniela Ibarra talks to neighbors to explain, coming up after the break. But first, a possible new Spurs arena right next door to this neighborhood is a big topic in Denver Heights. As we go to break, what the people we talked to at Tony G's think of the silver and black, potentially just down the block.
I see you got your Spurs hat on. You got
Yes,
your
sir.
Spurs shirt on.
Been with them since '72.
Are you excited about him being your new neighbor?
Yes, definitely. Like I said, I've been waiting for. I was waiting for the Alamo Dome. I mean, I'm that guy. We're that people. We want this because we want everybody to understand how great this area is.
The Spurs have left nothing but a bunch of empty promises to the east side everywhere they've touched.
What do you think about the Spurs moving in next door?
Well, it's going to be interesting. I guess the big question is who's going to pay for that move? That's the big question. Who's going to pay for the move?
Welcome back to Know My Neighborhood, coming to you live from Mark's Outing here in the Denver Heights neighborhood. Just outside that wall there is a mural of Victor Wembanyama, who, by the way, a little bit of breaking sports news tonight, has been named an All-Star for the first time in his career. I just talked with the owner of Mark's Outing here, Mark Outing, and Victor Wembanyama did indeed sign that mural that is outside this Denver Heights restaurant. So a pretty cool tie-in to a neighborhood, as we mentioned right before the break, may have Spurs as neighbors in the near future. There is so much more to know about this neighborhood, including some of the challenges that they face, and that's what we're going to talk about right now. This is Iowa Street. It runs right next to Pittman Sullivan Park, the Davis Scott YMCA. It is incredibly popular here, but neighbors don't always call it Iowa. Take a listen.
And we didn't call it Iowa, we called it our way, because it was our way.
Well, no matter what neighbors call it today, many of them agree there is an issue along this road. It is a mile-long stretch that neighbors say turns into a speedway in so many instances. Cesar Chavez turns into Iowa right after it crosses Cherry Street, and neighbors say that they've been worried about accidents there for years because of speeding. Daniela Ibarra went to find out what's the big concern, and is the city going to step in and help here?
It's a street with a spectacular sight. Aubrey Lewis has watched the skyline evolve, but he says the amount of drivers who speed on Iowa Street hasn't changed.
And you have to drive very defensively on Iowa Street.
He says he's seen some close calls. Lewis worries about his neighbors, especially the elderly.
I just held my breath because I said somebody's going to come through and T-bone on one of these days.
San Antonio police say in all of 2024, they've responded to 22 accidents along that mile-long stretch of road. 14 of them were major, including 5 near Iowa and Palmetto. We spoke with a woman who lives nearby.
What have you seen happen on the street?
Pues hemos visto muchos accidentes.
She says she's seen lots of accidents, and several cars have ended up in her yard.
When you see these accidents happen, what do you think?
Pues pienso que la ciudad debe de hacer algo como...
She says the city needs to do something. She worries for people who play at Pittman Sullivan Park right across the street.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Lewis's frustration comes from what he says are years of complaints gone unheard.
What has the city told you?
We'll look into it. In fact, I spoke to one of the safe officers, and he was going to set up some type of monitoring.
Lewis says he hasn't seen that happen. He believes there are a couple of fixes, like dropping the speed limit from 35 miles an hour to 30. Or the solution could be even simpler.
You just want a stop sign at the bare minimum?
Yes. The bare minimum is a stop sign, you know. Now, if they want to set up radar out there with the motorcycle officers, that's fine. That's beautiful.
All right, our Daniela Ibarra is back in our KSAT studios where she anchored our 5 o'clock show. She joins us now to talk about your experience in trying to get some answers here for Mr. Lewis and other neighbors. Daniela, we know that we've seen other neighborhoods where the city has done speed studies. Is that happening here in Denver Heights on Iowa?
Yeah, so we asked the city earlier this month. They said that they are looking, or that they hadn't really heard many complaints about it. They said last year they got 1 ticket related to that. They said that that's something they could definitely do in that area. They did file a 311 ticket after we had reached out to them. But like you said, this is something we've seen in other neighborhoods here in Know My Neighborhood. We went to Westwood Square. They had an issue with speeding there on Castroville Road. We did a story on it, and then they got a speed trailer. So that's something that I'm sure people there are hoping to see. That way they can get some sort of change there.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, as we talk about, you're part of our Know My Neighborhood team. These stories are something that extend well beyond this episode. So we want to check back in with neighbors here, find out what's happening on Iowa, and we know you'll be checking in with the city as well. Daniela, thank you. We want to go now to Shelly E. Bertowski, also in the studio for us tonight. And Shelby, the rain's cleared up just outside of Mark's outing here. It is a beautiful sunset, and it sounds like we got some even warmer temperatures on the way soon.
Yes, we do. But I want to focus first on the rain that we saw not only in San Antonio, but also for South Central Texas. In San Antonio, didn't receive a lot of rainfall, just saw almost 0.05 of an inch. As you went to the west, saw a little more of 1/10 of an inch, but I want to focus just to the north of San Antonio near Fredericksburg and Austin. That's where we saw anywhere from 1/2 inch of rainfall to just 1.25 inches in Austin, but also in areas near Bernie and Comfort, you saw anywhere from 1/2 inch to almost 2 inches of rain, and that's where we saw those heavier rain bands really set up last night into this morning. And for the rainfall so far since August 1st, we've had just under 5.25 inches of rainfall, almost 10.5 inches of rain lower from our average, and even since January 1st, we're almost 1 inch lower from where we should be with our rainfall accumulation. And you can really see that for our drought in South Central Texas near the Alamo City, but also as you head out west in West Texas near Fort Stockton. But also the storms we saw earlier today have continued to push out in areas of East Texas and in areas near Arkansas and Louisiana, still giving some stronger thunderstorms to folks just out there but also more rain showers as you get into areas near Illinois, Iowa, even in parts of Indiana and Ohio. But for us, all that was left were some cloudy skies, and that's going to continue to push out of our area as we head throughout the next few hours. And we're really going to start to see that sunshine really appear for areas just to the west and to the north by around 6 a.m. tomorrow. Still battling some cloud coverage for areas near the coastal plains. But otherwise, tomorrow evening, expect more sunshine and even a beautiful sunset for some of us in south central Texas. And although we received a lot of moisture in the last week or so, areas for the country are going to expect still more moisture expected for areas near the Great Lakes. But for us in south central Texas and even getting into areas of West Texas, New Mexico, and even the Panhandle, we're going to continue to be a little dry as we head throughout the weekend. Starting to next week, we're still going to be pleasant to dry before we get more rain chances next week, Wednesday and Thursday. Not looking at a lot of a rain accumulation, but still more chances of rain. But focusing on tomorrow, sunny skies are expected here in the Alamo City and San Antonio. Temperatures, though, waking up in those 40s, getting our peak temperature in those low 70s. But the good news for those folks who love the warmth, we really have that arrive this weekend, especially Saturday, Sunday, and getting into Monday. Temperatures warm up into those mid to upper 70s, even a chance of an 80 degrees on Monday. But then Monday is when we start to see that cloud coverage really appear before sunshine and that chance of rain arrives on Tuesday.
All right, Shelby, thank you. You are watching Know My Neighborhood live here from Denver Heights. We have so much more to explore about this historic neighborhood in San Antonio, just east of downtown. You know, this is prime real estate because of its proximity to the heart of the city, and developers are taking notice of that. How do you tap into new opportunities, though, without overshadowing what's been here all along or forcing people out? Neighbors have some thoughts on that still to come. Plus, where did the name Denver Heights come from? Might be a little more obvious than you think. That story and so much more when Know My Neighborhood continues next. back to Know My Neighborhood here in Denver Heights. We're live at Mark's Outing, just a few blocks east of downtown San Antonio. And you might be wondering, where did the Denver Heights name come from? Turns out the original developer coined that name. His name was J.A. Bartholomew, and he said that standing on the hill in what is now Pittman Sullivan Park, it reminded him of the views that he could get in his old hometown in Colorado. And today, that view is one that neighbors here are still so very proud of. Another huge point of pride for neighbors is the annual Martin Luther King Day March. It draws thousands of people to the east side, and that 2.5-mile march ends at Pittman Sullivan Park, right here in Denver Heights.
You reach a point where it's a high point, and at that high point, you know, they kind of stop the march and they tell everybody, now turn around and look, and you can just see the sea of people.
And that event brings in people not only from all over the city, but from all over the country to take part in what is happening here in this neighborhood. Several neighbors we talked to say that is one of the things they love about this march, an opportunity to show off the place they call home. Still to come here on Know My Neighborhood, Denver Heights is drawing developers. It is getting noticed, and that's a balancing act, an act of preserving what's here and welcoming in something new. We hear what neighbors think of that next on Know My Neighborhood. Welcome back to Know My Neighborhood. If you are just tuning in, we are live here in Denver Heights. This neighborhood just east of downtown, east of the Alamo Dome and Sunset Station. And there is a huge proposal that the whole city is watching right now. A new entertainment district, a sports entertainment district that could include a new Spurs arena. A lot of people watching to see what happens with that and how it could affect this neighborhood. But growth really has been happening in this neighborhood for generations. Economic development is certainly the priority right now. Avery Everett talked to neighbors who say they want that done responsibly.
Single or double?
One question.
Lettuce, tomatoes, mayonnaise, mustard, onions, pickles.
Followed by another.
Fries, onion rings, tater tots.
When ordering at Mark's Outing,
All right, thank you, man. You have a good one.
you get to meet the man himself.
Hey, come on, guys. I'll take care of you.
Mark Outing. And it's been that way for 20 years.
How has this business changed over the last 2 decades?
Oh, wow. It's changed quite a bit. It means a lot to me. I mean, for someone to even come into a restaurant like this and to patronize us, that means a whole lot to me.
But keeping this burger joint on East Commerce open hasn't been easy.
I literally have to say by the grace of God.
And economic progress for the entire neighborhood hasn't come any easier.
We've not seen nearly as much commercial or business development.
Denver Heights is the gateway between downtown and San Antonio's east side. A constant stream of cars and trucks on East Commerce is expected here, but getting them to stop and stay is this neighborhood's next step.
Economic development is community development. A lot of times people forget that the east side, particularly in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, had so much commercial activity, and it is our dream to kind of bring that back.
James Norte is the executive director of San Antonio for Growth on the east side. This group exists to encourage responsible economic development in neighborhoods just like Denver Heights.
We want to spur economic development from our small businesses because we need that, but we also need to remember our culture, our stories. So we need a balance. We don't want so much growth that the people who have lived here for generations can no longer afford to live here because property taxes go up so high.
Sage sees a solution in putting the community first with future growth.
We have to recognize that we're stronger together.
How many we have on?
It's an agreement forming between new businesses and old.
But even from, the first 6 months of opening, we have regulars still coming by. Barbecue is just one of those things that we really try to maintain our qualities.
Now, they just need outsiders coming in to get on board.
Anytime there's growth and more people that's coming to this side of the community, we always embrace it.
Hundreds of faces call Denver Heights home.
That means a whole lot to me.
As future plans for development unfold, this neighborhood's identity will always be written in its history.
And Avery joins us here live. Interesting that the head of Sage said spur growth.
I know.
There is so much focus on what the Spurs could mean for this area with that entertainment district and new arena right down the road.
Well, we know it's been a talker across the city, but that's why all of us were asking, what do you think about the potential Spurs stadium?
Yeah.
From the businesses I spoke to, there's a lot of excitement about future growth, but really mixed reviews across the board.
The plans at the Alamo Dome, hopefully it becomes a little more walkable over here.
We need to strike the right tone of new growth to pay for city services, but not growth that is so fast and so quick that we can't control it.
So we'll have to see, obviously, what happens with that. But it sounds like there is excitement here. But again, as you pointed out in your story, people want it done in the right way.
Responsible growth that comes with good opportunities.
Yeah. All right, Avery, thank you. We got a lot more to come still here on Know My Neighborhood. And one thing we have learned about Denver Heights, this is a community that loves to gather together. They love a reason to congregate, quite literally. And churches are a pillar for that in Denver Heights. There are hundreds of years of history tied into the many churches that are still celebrated today in Denver Heights. Katrina Weber takes us there when we come back. to Know My Neighborhood Denver Heights here on the Near East Side. You know, there's a saying that home is where the heart is. Well, in Denver Heights, that happens to be where the soul is as well. This neighborhood is uniquely home to so many churches that hold hundreds of years of history. Katrina Weber shows us how they have made a lasting impression on this community.
The music here alone tells a story, but the walls hold the history of Holy Redeemer, San Antonio's only remaining historically Black Catholic church.
It was a place where they weren't relegated to the back of the church. They were the church.
Father Kevin Faust has been pastor of this parish on Nevada Street near Gevers for nearly 2 decades. He's well versed, though, in the pains of the past. Members of a larger faith segregated because of skin color.
To have a place where you could come to pray, to have a place where you could come to socialize, to have a place where your children were in school, that was major.
Originally founded as a home for the poor in 1901, the church has grown and changed over the years.
The windows have been completely redone. Everything's been replastered.
What matters most to some is still the same.
We are a special, special place.
Dr. Leo Edwards grew up in Denver Heights and has called this his church home all along. For him, it's about more than religion. It's the people and pride.
That had us marching, participating in level of civil rights activities as a parish.
The role it has played for more than a century is not unlike that of other churches in this area. Regardless of denomination, they've been sanctuaries for souls, minds, and bodies. The connection between this neighborhood and churches runs deep. There are at least 10 here that have been serving this community for more than 100 years. In all, Father Kevin oversees 3 on that list, a combined 300 plus years of history. If he and others have their way, this story will go on.
I hope that it continues to grow.
At Holy Redeemer and beyond.
And Katrina's here live with us now at Mark's outing. And Katrina, we found out that, you know, the racial makeup of the neighborhoods that a lot of these churches serve, it's changed over the years. So how is that affecting these churches that have traditionally served a Black congregation?
Yeah, it's a pretty safe bet that some of them have seen declines in their congregations. But in the case of Holy Redeemer, Father Kevin was saying that his church has become more of a melting pot. But he said at the core, it's still the same gospel music, still the same type of preaching, which he says you can get at any other Catholic church in the city.
Still the same mission.
Exactly.
Yeah, Katrina, thank you.
Sure.
All right, let's take a look outside with live cam here. We're here in Denver Heights, just east of downtown, but we're keeping tabs on the forecast for all of South Texas. Shelby Ebertowski is back in the studio with an update. Hey, Shelby.
Yeah, it's beautiful sunset today, and we have that cloud coverage continuing to leave South Central Texas to thank for that beautiful sunset. But today, we got to around 60 degrees this morning, and our peak temperature was around 73. Still, both temperatures going to be above average, and that's going to be the trend we're going to start to see at least through the weekend and even into next week with our temperatures warming up. But tomorrow morning, normally our average is right in those 40s, so we are going to be on track for our average morning temperatures, but in the afternoon is when we're really going to see that increase. 45 tomorrow morning in San Antonio, 42 degrees in Comfort, and it is going to be a little on the colder side for some folks tomorrow in those 40s, but like I said, our temperatures increase right back into those 70s, still having some slightly breezy winds out of the northeast, but otherwise, this weekend is when we're really going to start to see those temperatures increase and that sunshine really start to arrive in South Central Texas, and especially on Sunday can be one of the warmer days we've seen in a while, especially since we had that chance of those wintry mixes last week or two, and temperatures really going to be on the warmer side. And good news is we're going to continue to stay on the warmer side as we head throughout the weekend and into next week. Our average normally this time of year in those 60s, but But on Monday, take a look at that. Our peak temperature in San Antonio getting to around 78. Some areas, especially in South Texas and getting into the coastal plains, have a chance for our air temperature to reach 80 degrees. But then Monday night into Tuesday morning, that's when we start to have some humidity re-arrive in South Central Texas and the Alamo City, with more rain chances arriving on Wednesday. I'll have your full forecast on those temperatures and that sunshine coming up after this break.
You are looking at a mural of Victor Wembanyama right outside where we are broadcasting live. Mark's outing here off of Commerce in Denver Heights. And we're talking about this because tonight, Wembanyama was named an All-Star for the first time in his NBA career. And that right there, that's a key part of this mural. That framed portion is where Wemby signed the mural. Of course, the Spurs phenom, it seems kind of fitting because of all the ways we have talked about how the Spurs have an influence in this neighborhood, and it may be that their future is not yet done when it comes to impacting Denver Heights. So that's a little bit of a tie-in with our latest sports news and what's happening right here in Denver Heights tonight. All right, we want to get back to Shelby Ebertowski. She is in the studio. And Shelby, you mentioned some warmer temperatures. Some people are done with winter. I don't know if it's done with us, but it sounds like we're getting a bit of a break.
Yes, we are. Not only some drier conditions, but also some warmer conditions for sure. And that's really starting already this evening into tomorrow. And temperatures are going to warm up this weekend into those upper 70s and even into an isolated 80 degrees as we start off the work week. But otherwise, more humidity and more rain arrives next week. But we're going to focus on the positive this weekend in the fact that we're going to have low humidity and sunny skies. And that's really already starting on today. And that's going to continue until about Sunday. That's that's when we're going to start to see some sort of humidity arrive before more chances of some cloudy skies and some rain arrive Tuesday. But otherwise, you're going to enjoy today, tomorrow, and even Saturday with plenty of sunshines before that chance of some precipitation arrives Tuesday through Thursday. We're not tracking a lot of accumulation, just some light sprinkles, but wanted to give you that heads up, especially after the rain we saw yesterday and even this last week. Our average rainfall just shy under 2 inches of rain. Right now, we're just shy of under 1 inch, so we are below average for our rainfall, nowhere near last January for over 6 3/4 inches of rainfall. But the rain we saw yesterday is continuing to push out to the east in areas near Indiana, Illinois, and even getting into areas of the Ohio River Valley. And all that's left is we're starting to see some breezier winds, especially in West Texas, because of that low pressure system just near the Four Corners. We're getting that extra wraparound wind and some extra cloud coverage here in South Central Texas. And that's what brought some of the rain showers we saw earlier, and still some rain showers in areas of Houston. But otherwise, that cloud coverage is just going to stick around at least overnight tonight by tomorrow morning, and it's going to continue to push out of our neck of the woods. But otherwise, temperatures for most of the nation right now sitting above their average temperatures, especially us in San Antonio, sitting right at average at 64 degrees. Otherwise, most of the areas near the Great Lakes sitting in those 30s and 40s, 39 degrees in Detroit this afternoon. But otherwise, taking a little look closer to home, 74 degrees in Del Rio, 58 in Kerrville, 66 here in San Antonio. And I wanted to point this out. The last few days, we've had that high humidity. But today, after those rain showers came through, we're sitting at 34% for that humidity in San Antonio. And we're going to continue to stay on the drier side, and even take a look at the dew point. Still a little more humid and moist atmosphere for areas near the coastal plains, but dry out west. And with those stronger winds, they're going to be a little elevated for some fire chances, but otherwise still going to be very dry as we head throughout the next few hours, especially as our temperatures decrease into those 50s. But even for tomorrow, waking up in those 40s, and we quickly see that sunshine, and that's going to allow for our temperatures to warm up in those 70s. Not having a strong wind tomorrow, so it's going to really feel like 72 degrees for us in San Antonio. And even as we head into this weekend for Groundhog Day, won't see any shadows here in San Antonio as we're going to continue to have those clear skies. But then those clouds arrive on Monday and Tuesday, and then on Tuesday, that's when we start to see that chance of precipitation. But otherwise, Myra, 70s and some sunny skies is in store for the weekend, and it's going to be perfect to go outside in San Antonio.
Yeah, feeling a little more spring-like. Thank you, Shelby. We've got a lot more here to come on Know My Neighborhood. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Know My Neighborhood. I am joined now here at Mark's Outing by Charles Williams. You have lived in Denver Heights over 6 decades, you said, and you have a museum that's here. Tell me about it.
I lived in Denver Heights, but I've had a business. I started my professional career 66 years ago right here in this neighborhood.
Wow. So you know it well.
2 blocks down the street on Commerce between Hagberry and Mesquite.
Tell me about your museum. What kind of museum and where's it located?
It's located on the corner of Hagberry and Montana, and it pertains about 98% of information pertaining to blacks in this particular neighborhood. I'm so proud of Denver Heights, and I'm also proud of the new president of Denver Heights, Mr. Lewis, because he keeps a keen eye on what's going on over here. But the development that's taking place, I think, is good because what it's doing is helping to clean up the neighborhood, and it's bringing a little bit of economic stimulus to the community. One of my greatest concerns in this building right across the street here, if we could ever get them to do something with the Fredericks building, I think it'd be a boost and a shot in the arm for this entire community.
That has been a big question for a long time. What's going to happen to that building? And you talk about this museum that you really only opened a couple of years ago. Why was that so important for you to do?
Well, it was important because the people in that museum were the people that did significant things in this community. Dr. Enns and Dr. S.T. Scott, Mr. Cunningham, all those people made sure that this neighborhood stayed viable and clean and healthy for people who lived in this particular neighborhood.
Got to know where you came from, right? I wanted to bring you over here because today is Thursday, and we do something here at KSAT called Thermometer Thursday. Okay. And I am not going to deliver this with the same gusto as my buddy Adam Caskey, but he handmade this thermometer, and we want to give it to you on this very special Thursday for you to put up in your museum.
I'll put it in the museum. I'll be delighted to do so. I'm also a craft person myself, so I may copy this and make some more.
Well, I want you to know he would say that is perfectly calibrated.
Okay. Very good. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Mr. Williams.
Thank you. Thanks again.
Appreciate it.
And hooray for Denver Heights.
We'll be right back here on Know My Neighborhood. is our time. Thanks to all the Denver Heights neighbors who shared their story with us. We will see you next month for Know My Neighborhood.
You've seen it. You've lived it. You've prepared for it. Droughts, hurricanes, annoying pop-up storms. There's nothing you can't handle because the trusted Weather Authority is always tracking ahead of time, always looking inside the storm.